Hey guys, before we get started with this edition of the Entertainment from the 573 podcast, the pod ran a little bit longer than we expected to, ran a little over 2 hours, so our plan is we're going to split these two up. You're going to get the Comic-Con talk of the show first, all that stuff, along with our thoughts on trailers, the MCU, along with Peter's update of his DCEU, and then a little bit later on, you're going to get our edition of the show where we're talking about Lion King, Stuber Crawl, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So that should be coming out soon. With that being said, everybody, enjoy the show.
Welcome back, America, to the Entertainment from the 573. Thanks for joining us yet again. God knows how long it's been since we've done a real entertainment episode that wasn't just a list. But we're back. It's me, Peter Lewis, and I'm joined by Ryan McDaniel. Ryan, how's it going?
I'm doing good, Peter. Yeah, and plus we got to talk about, Peter, we talked about this. Are we going to start the Church of Tarantino here officially on the podcast?
Oh, I started that years ago, but yeah, officially on the pod we can acknowledge it exists.
Yep, so everybody, welcome to the Church of Quentin Tarantino. It's officially starting on this episode 35 of Entertainment. Surprised it took us this long.
One day after the release of his newest ninth film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, his supposed second to last film. We'll see if that takes two, and we'll get to that. But, of course, we'll talk about that. We got that new Lion King movie. Stuber and Ryan saw Crawl as well. I just saw Once Upon a Time, believe it or not. That's all I've done so far.
Yeah, I went and pulled a double feature last week.
Yeah. And we're going to end it with DCU. Not because they did good at Comic-Con. I mean, they realistically just took the biggest L I've ever seen in my life. No, it's my DECU.
Yep, the one that matters.
It's going to be a kind of a quasi-Comic-Con panel to explain what it's going to be. And we'll get to that when we get there, because the original one, well, in true Warner Brothers DC fashion, completely rebooted from the ground up because a certain somebody who's not here, Matt Mormon, is just a little too impatient and doesn't want to wait for Superman films. So, yeah, there we go.
Give me my Man of Steel sequel.
I don't want to wait 2 years.
I don't even want to wait one.
Made synopsises for 43 films of what it could have been, and we didn't even get like 4 in before Matt was like, no, this is dumb. Oh. Best part about this is Matt's not here to defend himself, so that's my favorite part.
Nope, and I'm right there with you.
So yes, don't worry, we have not forgotten about it. It will happen, and we're going to dedicate the end to explain my thought process and what it's going to be. And we'll, of course, have to do it in parts, because there's no way we can get through a whole cinematic universe in one go.
Yeah, this is not new. This is not New Mutants, everybody.
It's like, imagine explaining the MCU in a pod. Like, you can't do it.
Oh, man. Yeah.
That's why Kevin Feige made phases.
Shout out to Papa Feige.
Yeah, but even then, phase 3 is like 6 years long to explain, so...
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll get there, and so strap in, everybody, and let's get straight on to it. Ryan, you saw a bunch of films. Let's start talking about them.
Yeah, so we're going to start off first with The Lion King. That has done gangbusters at the box office.
Despite mixed reviews.
Yeah, mixed reviews. And I'll tell you this, Peter. Nothing can live up to the original Lion King animated film. Nothing can. This can't. This film can't. And be honest, living up to it is really hard because that animated film is basically perfect. Mm-hmm. But I think Jon Favreau coming in, he knew what he could do with this type of setting, with CGI and all this stuff. He did it with Jungle Book, and that got high praise for his version. And so you knew coming in, like, this is going to be tough to make it a worthy type of adaptation to the original. But I'll say this. For me, it was fine. I'll tell you the best parts. The best parts were, and I heard this before I went in and saw the theater, I completely agree. John Oliver as Zazu, he was amazing. and then Billy Eichner and Seth Rogen as Timon and Pumbaa. I mean, listen, Peter, if you're going to cast anybody as Pumbaa, Seth Rogen fits it to a T.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you can't get better. And Billy Eichner was fantastic as Timon. They were just incredible. But, it's not a live action film. It's technically an animated film because, again, all these are computer generated images.
Just very high quality animation to where the point it looks like real life.
Yeah.
Now I want to ask you, because obviously I haven't seen it, but I'm not above, crapping on movies I haven't seen. Was it hard to differentiate the characters? Because that was my thing watching the trailers. I was like, it was easy to identify Timon and the lions, I should say, because there were different art styles. But here in the trailer, I was like, they look exactly the same. Which I get because you're going for that real world aesthetic. But I think that kind of challenges the charm of the original.
Yeah. Well, listen, for me, it wasn't hard because I could differentiate. That's Mufasa, that's Simba.
The voices probably helped in that regard, I imagine.
Yeah, the voices helped. I'll say this: Glover and Beyonce, they were fine. It wasn't world beater, but they were fine. They did their parts, and there's one part, like, if everybody knows it, when, like, the Hakuna Matata number is on, and you have Simba revealed as this adult lion now, that note he hits when he comes out with the reveal, Donald Glover did that perfectly. And so that was a good reveal. You had a little bit more to the film there. You had this whole thing with Nala about her trying to escape the Scar's reign and try to sneak past him and the hyenas and all this stuff. And I will tell you this: another good part of the film was I can't pronounce the guy's name, but the guy that plays Mordo in Doctor Strange.
Yeah,
he voices Scar, and he did a good job of voicing Scar. Like, yeah, sure. Jeremy Irons, he voiced Scar in the animated version, and he did a good job with that. But this guy did a good job as well with that part. And the Be Prepared number, I know some people are talking about was a little bit watered down. I know some people did kind of like it. It was kind of like a chant, like, be prepared, be prepared. It wasn't like the song in the movie. But yeah, for me, it was just fine. It doesn't live up to the animated. It's very tough to do so. Even when you got Disney and Favreau and an all-star voice cast. Like, everybody did awesome. Except, like, there's a few that stood out. Of course, you got James Earl Jones with Mufasa. If you could bring any... Like, you had to bring him back. It's like, he's iconic with this. Mm-hmm. He's synonymous with that, and he's synonymous with Darth Vader. Two characters on different spectrums, but...
It's like J.K. Simmons as Jameson. Like, you can't really do anybody else.
No, you can't. But for me, the film was fine. It's a funny film, and a lot of that attributes to Timon and Pumbaa and all this stuff. But for me, the film was above average. I'm not going to give it I'm not around the score that's on Rotten Tomatoes. I believe it's like, in the 50s still?
Last I checked, I think it was like 56.
So I think
But again, remember, Rotten Tomatoes is the percentage of people who gave it a positive. That's not the actual score. I'll check the Metacritic for you, because that's more of the average of actual scores.
If I had to give it a score, I would give it a 6.5, and the most I would go is a 7. It was okay. It was fine. It was enjoyable. It had its laughs and had its moments. But another thing for me, it kind of felt like you were going through the motions. Like, you knew what the big scenes of The Lion King were. Like, Mufasa's death, how that's a big turning point. Yeah, the Circle of Life number. Like, the Circle of Life number was awesome. It was almost exactly shot for shot with the animated film.
Mm-hmm. That was my next question. I mean, does it really do anything different? Because that's what I remembered watching the Cinderella, Jungle Book, and Beauty and the Beast live actions. I was just like, I've seen this before, but now it's real.
Yeah.
And I was kind of just watching like, why?
Yeah.
Now, in the case of the Jungle Book, I thought the acting was top notch and the visual kind of helped it more. So that's really the only one I truly have liked on a good scale.
Yeah. There's a couple different things. Like, I was expecting, like, there's one moment towards the end that I was really getting ready for, to hear Seth Rogen say this. The line where, like, it's that final battle, and, like, did you just call me a pig from the anime film? I was like, I can't wait for that line with Seth Rogen's going to be awesome. And it never happened. It's like, it changed, like, did you just call me chubby? I guess you can say it's kind of synonymous, but it's different. Let me tell you, Pumbaa actually really wrecks the hyenas in this one. Like, they stand a chance. I guess having a warthog like Pumbaa really helps in a fight against them. But yeah, no, this film for me, it's fine. I did have a good time at it. It was enjoyable. Again, it was going to be very tough to live up to the original animated film anyway. So, but I still think this movie is going to play well with the audiences. People are going to get introduced to that, and it's doing well at the box office.
I mean, Disney just about said they'll keep making these until they don't work anymore. They flop, so it's safe to assume they're going to continue. I think the next one's 101 Dalmatians, which could be interesting, because the live-action ones of the 90s kind of left more to be desired. So I kind of think that would be fun to explore.
Yeah, like, I know they're planning on doing a Cruella film. And I know, as far as Disney remakes or live-action stuff, I know Mulan is coming down the pipeline. I think next year, to be sure. But, yeah, I agree with you there. I think before we leave off here, there's actually one thing we forgot to mention off the top. Actually, a couple of big things. And all three are kind of connected with Disney. Especially one with live action. Aladdin officially crossed the $1 billion mark, which for me, Aladdin was good. I didn't expect it to hit that, so props to them for being able to cross the $1 billion mark with that.
See, that's one that doesn't surprise me, because Will Smith still has the box office appeal, and it's one of the more celebrated ones, I would say.
Yeah, but I will say this: we live in a different age, where, like, it doesn't matter who the big star is. If you have a good story and a good plot, people will come and see it. And if you have a bunch of good stuff in it, people will come. I think we're in a different age.
Sure, but I think star power and recognition counts for that, too.
It helps, but it doesn't help as much as it did like 25, 30 years ago.
Yeah. Now, Aladdin was the one that actually got good reviews, I think.
Yeah, Aladdin was pretty good. I remember the reviews being all right for that.
I wonder if that has to do because it's more of a human story, so it's easier to connect to. Because The Lion King, I think what made it work was it was animated. You were aware that, this wasn't real, but you went along with it anyway because how it was created. Where now it's like, oh no, here it is for real. And it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Like I say, I haven't seen it, so I mean, I can't trash on it too much. I'm just saying, I think Disney is cutting themselves short with their creativity here. That's been my big complaint with this whole experiment.
Yeah, and then a couple other things. Another film crossed the $1 billion mark. We talked about it, I think, on the last Entertainment Pod. Spider-Man: Far From Home. It crossed the $1 billion, and that means all three MCU films have crossed $1 billion this year. And I believe, now this is a crazy stat here, Peter. I believe I heard there's a certain number, it was like 1.5, 1.6, that if Far From Home got to that point, the total average of what all 23 MCU movies would have made would average out to $1 billion. That's just nuts. They're not slowing down anytime soon. And speaking of something that didn't slow down, I'm thankful it didn't slow down. Avengers Endgame finally topped Avatar.
We did it, everybody.
Yes, we did. We won.
A film that will actually be remembered because of story and characters is number one.
Yeah.
Now we cue the people who will say, well, Gone with the Wind adjusted for inflation. I don't care about your inflation rates. I care about the actual number. Plus, Gone with the Wind was in theaters for like 4 or 5 years. So I mean,
I wish we had Endgame in the theaters for that long.
I wish Mad Max: Fury Road was still in theaters.
Oh man. Well, there's going to be some more of those films coming down the pipeline, I've heard. So,
Well, if WB can get their act together, which that's the that's easier said than done.
yeah. And so, yeah, I know. I think we talked about this in the group chat. I think once Avatar 2 comes out, I think once that gets closer, they'll put Avatar back out. Make sure to have that, make some more money, be the number one film in the world again, and advertise Avatar 2 as this is the sequel to the number one film of all time. I mean, it kind of makes sense from a marketing standpoint and from Disney standpoint since they own Avatar now. But
Yeah, we'll get into Avatar 2 as it gets close to release, because that's just such an interesting thing. Like, it's been a decade. Well, actually, it's going to be over a decade after this year.
yeah,
And they've already approved 4 sequels. So part of me thinks they don't even need to do that, because if they're confident they can make 4 sequels to this movie, what's the point of even re-releasing the first one?
yeah, that's a fair point.
Like say, but again, we have so much to talk about, and
Yeah,
all we know for now is Avatar is not number one. All is right in the world. Suck on that, James Cameron, you fraud. Used to be good, and then you made trash.
and he's got trash coming down 2021.
Yeah.
All right, a couple other movies I saw. I went and treated myself to a double feature last week. I think it was last week. It was last Friday to be exact. When saw Stuber, when saw Crawl. I'll tell you this, Peter. This is going to get a little bit weird here. So, Stuber, I found it more hilarious, and that tends to be the winner for me. But Crawl was the better movie. And so far on Rotten Tomatoes, people seem to agree with that.
Yeah, Crawl is getting much better reviews than I expected. I know Raimi's good with schlock and B-movie stuff, but I just didn't feel like with modern reviewers that would be good for 2019, but I guess I was wrong.
And I'll tell you what, Peter, we live in such a time where we're all interested in the connected universes. We're like, oh, this thing is connected to this movie. That means they're both connected. But with Crawl, it's a simple idea, and sometimes simple ideas work.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can get your idea down to a T and do it really, really good, it's going to be successful.
It's a film that satisfies that summer popcorn movie demographic, which is what we want.
Yeah.
Because I agree. Sometimes you just want something that's its own thing. It doesn't have to be, this interweaving thing or based on a property from years ago. It can just be a little idea. Like, from the looks of it, it's just what? It's a hurricane, they're trying to survive, and there's gators.
Yeah.
That's great. And it's Sam Raimi, so what more do you need?
Yeah. Spider-Man showing up. But no, yeah, Crawl. And both these films were fairly short. Both of them were around an hour and a half. Both were easy watches. Stuber, of course, he had Dave Bautista, Kumail Nanjiani, and like I said, it was hilarious. It was hilarious. I'll tell you that it was very funny. Bautista was blind. His character was blind for some parts of it, so parts of that were funny. just to see that going on. And they had this ridiculous fight in this kind of like sporting goods store that Kumail Nanjiani's character works at. And they're just fighting with all these sporting goods stuff. It's like, this is nuts. But it was a good time. It was hilarious. So Stuber was the funnier movie. Crawl was the better one. That one, when it's intense, I'll tell you, with Crawl, the first, like, maybe 10 to 15 minutes or so, kind of a little bit slow, but after that, it picks right up. Everything's intense. The alligators are scary. And you know what's the scariest part, Peter, about it? She goes to the University of Florida.
Oh, there we go.
That's the scariest part of all.
She's going to transfer to Florida State after this.
That. But no, those are my thoughts on Stuber and Crawl. If you want to go check them out, I'm pretty sure they're still out, but who knows? Because they may not be, because we have this crazy film we'll talk about next, Peter. that is really good.
Now we're gonna go into detail, but we'll do the initial just basic thoughts and no spoilers. Check in the description for when we skip to our Comic-Con, because that's when because by then we'll give you the spoiler warning, and then you can skip ahead.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been close to 4 years since Mr. Tarantino last graced us with his cinematic expertise in Hateful Eight, which felt like to be his most mixed film. Even next to Jackie Brown, which I think it was more because it came after Pulp Fiction. That's why people were mixed on it, but over the years it's kind of been more appreciated. Hateful Eight following Inglourious Bastards and Django Unchained. I don't think people expected that kind of like novel-esque film with, the violence. And here, as we come to, which is supposedly his second to last film, because for those not to know, Tarantino said he was going to do 10 films. He's kind of hinted at, I can always change that, but just from his mind, and I kind of agree with him, it feels better to do. Because the more films you do, the more fraudish you feel, I would say. Unless you're like Martin Scorsese, which, not everybody can be.
Yeah, and I'm sure...
But I think Tarantino could.
And I'm sure Tarantino has way more ideas.
Oh, yeah. Like I say, from what we know now, supposedly this is his second to last film, but again, take that with a couple grains of salt. But yeah, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it's Leonardo DiCaprio's first acting role in nearly 4 years. He hasn't done anything since The Revenant, which feels like a lifetime ago at this point.
He really hasn't done anything since then?
He's done like 2 narrations for nature documentaries and all that, but nothing acting-wise, which is mind-blowing.
I guess that's what happens after you win your first Oscar.
Yeah. Or if you're just DiCaprio, you just know you're good.
Yeah.
And he has done such good work with Tarantino, especially in Django Unchained. I mean, I think those are just 2 like very dynamic acts that just mesh so well together. Because DiCaprio has improved so much for me over the years. Because I did not like him for a long time, but then Shutter Island came out, and he just started getting better with Django and Wolf of Wall Street just being the crown jewels of what he can do as a talent.
And then he did The Revenant, and
yeah, The Revenant's kind of a mixed bag for me, but hey, at least he won finally.
Yeah, he finally got what he wanted.
All he had to do was just eat a fish raw, and that was the Academy's like, all right, here's your award.
I bet he was like, is this all I had to do to win an Oscar? Seriously?
I still think he should have won it for Wolf of Wall Street, but hey, that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
But he's back, kids. He's back.
Oh, man, he's so good in this film.
And also, Brad Pitt is here. I don't remember the last thing he was in. I'll look it up, but I don't think he's been anything huge as I Google him and realize, oh, no, you were in a big film recently.
Yeah, Brad, he was good in this film, too.
He plays DiCaprio's character's stunt double, which you are just super... If you're Leo, you're so cool when Brad Pitt, of all people, is portraying your stunt double.
That's when you know you're in a good place.
I will say the 2 of them were just fantastic in this.
Oh, man, that's such a good combo.
DiCaprio's like whole, and it's in the trailer, so it's not really a spoiler, this has-been actor, the glory days are behind him, he's becoming an afterthought, just becoming, typecast, basically.
Yeah.
And, Pitt being his, stunt double and friend and driver, because, DiCaprio's character got one too many DUIs, which was, that explanation was hilarious why he has to drive him around. I will say, it is a quintessential Quentin Tarantino movie. That sounds awkward to say out loud. So many thousands. I would say, first of all, I enjoyed this film a lot. It's definitely one of his high quality films. I don't think it cracks his top 5 for me, but I definitely enjoy it more than I'd say Kill Bill and the one he did with Rodriguez for the Grindhouse.
I can't think of it off the top of my head, but I'll tell you a couple points here, Peter, with the film that kind of stood out to me. You mentioned the point where, like, Leo's character Rick Dalton is being typecast, and you kind of had Al Pacino's character kind of talk to him about that, and like him maybe heading out the door soon. I think one of the things that's honestly kind of relatable is the stuff with age and how we deal with that. Like, when do we know when we're at our peak? When do we know we're on the downslide? Stuff like that. And this film, particularly Leo's character, deals heavily with that, and that's really relatable. And another thing too, with Tarantino, this is a love letter to Hollywood. I mean, basically the title says it, to Hollywood in the late '60s.
It's kind of, that's one of the surprising things for me, because I was expected, if he was like truly going to go hard into a decade, it was going to be the '70s, because that's where a lot of his exploitation love has come from. But it was interesting to see him go to this decade and the setting it was in, which is 1969 Hollywood. And it's also the good foil, because Margot Robbie's also in this as Sharon Tate, which we'll get to her more or less in the spoiler part. It was interesting because she had pretty much no lines for the most of it.
No, she didn't.
And it makes sense when it comes to the end. But she was like her character is more of a foil for Rick Dalton. You know, this once great actor who's on his downturn, and his next door neighbor is Polanski and Sharon Tate. At the time, the up-and-comers of Hollywood.
Yeah.
It was a very interesting thing to see in how they played with that. But also it was kind of interesting because when Sharon Tate, played of course by Robbie, goes to see her movie The Wrecking Crew, which IRL turned out to be one of her last films, or I think she had one that was a post-death release. I can't remember off the top of my head. How she's, in the theater watching it, how people are reacting. But of course, beforehand, she's not known at that point.
Yeah.
She has to explain to the ticket person that, I'm in the movie, I'm Sharon Tate, yada yada. There's kind of hint that even she knows that her star won't last forever, which I thought was interesting, because, that's what DiCaprio's feeling. And there's a very good scene where DiCaprio's on set for a movie he gets cast in, his character Rick Dalton, I should say. And he's with like a younger actress.
Yeah.
I think she said she was 8 years old.
Yeah, I love that scene.
First of all, buy some stock in whoever that actress is. If she's hanging with Leonardo DiCaprio and however old she is, we got a star on our hands.
Yeah.
I was amazed by that. But, he's like, they're talking about the books they're reading. She's reading a biography about Walt Disney, and she's like super intelligent. Like, he's such a fascinating man. I was just like, hey, Colin, I know you hate Quentin Tarantino, but he's giving your boy Walt Disney the big push. And of course, Leonardo DiCaprio's character is reading a book about, a cowboy, and he starts realizing the parallels between the cowboy's life to his, how, he used to be the hottest thing in the terms of, horse ranching or whatever it was. And then he, the character in the book got hurt and couldn't do it anymore. He's like starts breaking down. But he's trying to make it not obvious that it's about his life. It's like, it's a sad story now that I realized it. It was pure Tarantino at its finest. It was that idea that it's hilarious, but at the same time you realize, oh, this is sad.
Yeah, and Peter, I think a couple things here. A couple scenes before that, when he's just like breaking down in his trailer.
Oh, that was good.
Oh my, that was freaking great.
I will say, this, while it's Tarantino at its best, it's also him at his worst. But in a good way, because you have to be very patient with this film. He does not get right to it. In this film especially, and Hateful Eight started it, but here it hits all out. It's like a very slow burn.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of establishment of what's going on, the situations. Like, we don't really get to Spawn Ranch, is where the Manson family was, up until, like, an hour before the film ends. And this is a, like, two and a half hour film.
It's over 2.5 hours.
Yeah, so, I mean, 90 minutes, the first 90 minutes is just what's DiCaprio's story, what's Pitt's story, And what is Sharon Tate doing?
And I will tell you this, Peter, circling back to that scene with Sharon Tate in the theater.
Mm-hmm.
One interesting fact about that is that the Bruin Theater, I think, is actually where they are, where I think maybe they had the premiere there, or something like that, or like
It wouldn't surprise me.
or like, and somebody said like, what if Margot Robbie just goes there watching this film, watching her watch herself, or something like that.
Yeah.
But I really do love that scene and the reactions that she gets out of all the people, and of course in this time period, like the world's going uncertainty. I think Vietnam was getting close to happening, or
Oh yeah, you got the one of the Manson girls that Pitt picks up, talking about the real problems in Vietnam, brother.
yeah. And so I guess it's like that's a good representation of just like if you can make some people laugh during something like as dark as that, I think you've done your job. And I think that
We should also say that Rick Dalton's character hates hippies, which, especially when we get to the end, was just very good.
Do we need to go into spoilers now?
What are some other things I want to say? I will say I love the aesthetic. I love
yes,
just how it tests your knowledge of Hollywood.
oh
Because Lancer was actually a TV show back in the day.
yeah,
I was like, oh, that's real. And then they said some movies. I was like, I don't think that was real, but I know that's real. The guy who played Bruce Lee, I think I've talked about this before when he was cast. He's a guy that is a martial artist in real life and actually portrayed him in some other things.
Yeah.
Like, he idolizes the guy. So I kind of thought, hey, good on that guy getting to portray, his legend, his hero, I should say, in this film. That was a cool touch.
yes,
And how it wasn't just, a pointless cameo. Like, it did tie into the Sharon Tate thing later on because of one of her scenes in The Wrecking Crew. Which I so say, kind of helping your point of how her star power was at the time. Dean Martin, one of the kings of cool at the time, was in that movie with her. So it just goes to show you how up and coming she was before her, of course, untimely death by the Manson family. I did love the Playboy Mansion scene was great. Because they had two women portraying Cass Elliot and Michelle Phillips from the Mamas and Papas. And they looked just like Cass Elliot and Michelle Phillips. I was like, did they revive Cass Elliot? And of course, there was Steve McQueen. I forget who played him, but he was...
Oh, Damian Lewis.
Yeah, thank you. Just for that little scene of him commenting on Hollywood and all that. I was like, that was nice. There's again, you have to be patient with it and realize what he's trying to do. Because Tarantino's not, a straight... We're so used to, everything's leading up to something. It's moving in a direction. Here it just kind of feels like, when's the film going to start?
Yeah.
That's all I really have to say about that. Oh, Bruce Dern was fun as George Spahn, as well as the whole scene where Brad Pitt goes to Spahn Ranch. But yeah, so without further ado,
I think I found the girl who played that young actress. I think her name is, let me see if I'm Julia Butters. Okay.
Okay.
And I'm looking on Wikipedia as Trudy Fraser, inspired by Meryl Streep. She was just great, and in that scene, after Leo's character gets his crap together, and we had that scene where he's acting all tough and they call cut of that was a really good scene right there. And of course you've seen this in the trailer where she's like, that was some of the best acting I've ever seen in my life. I'm looking at that, Peter. I know this is supposed to be what Matt would say a prestigious movie for all the Oscar people, but that's a meme waiting to happen right there.
Oh. This is a film that I need to remind me that I like film and don't hate it. Because the amount of trash just comes out, I'm just like, what happened to this? Used to mean something. But yeah, absolutely, DiCaprio and Pitt will get a nomination for sure.
Oh, they should.
I think Pitt has the best chance of winning because he was he was convincing as just that suave guy from out the whole film.
Yeah.
I also want to say I think his backstory with his wife was a reference to Natalie Wood. But I'm not 100% sure. But just, again, nice touches there. Like, if you're aware of the time frame of, the late 60s and, world history and Hollywood, just so many Easter eggs. I mean, this is... I'd see it again because it's Tarantino, and I always do, but I think for this one, it's got to be like, what did I miss?
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff that you could have missed.
But without further ado, if you have not seen it, check the description. We should have a little marker or a timestamp to say skip here. But if you've seen it, we'll talk about it right now. So, Ryan, here's the thing. I knew going into this with Tarantino, he was going to do something different.
Yeah.
But I still thought Sharon Tate was going to get killed.
Oh, I did too. I was like, I'm waiting for this to happen.
But then I heard something interesting that he discussed the film with the Tate family. Her descendants, of course.
Yeah.
And they gave a blessing to it. I was like, how did Quentin Tarantino get a blessing to basically gut the, late family member? Like, how suave can you be to do that? It's like, hey, your family member Sharon, who was brutally murdered, can I do that on screen just to exploit it? Oh, yeah. It's like, I want that charisma skill. But, Sharon Tate not only survived, she's not even in any peril.
No.
Her character, because I remember the controversy was Quentin Tarantino didn't give her any lines, and of course it's very, very obvious in the film, and kind of a distraction at a point. I was like, what is going on here? Did they, accidentally delete some of her footage? And no, the point was, at least to me, her character was not only to be kind of like a foil / parallel to Rick Dalton. I think she was just a red herring. Because everyone going in probably knew about the Manson murders, because, her murder was easily the biggest of that whole spree.
Yeah.
So you're expecting, like, oh, Margot Robbie, Sharon Tate, kind of similar vein, rising actresses, yada yada, gonna get killed. And that's not what happens. What happens is, the night of when Charles Manson ordered Tex and them to go to the Tate house, the Polanski house, actually to kill him, they're outside, and of course they're neighbors to Dalton, and the car's just loud, and Rick Dalton just goes out and just starts yelling at them.
Oh, man.
Like, get out of here, you hippies, go smoke a joint somewhere else. And of course they leave, and of course, like, oh, we've been spotted. And one of the Manson girls is like, when I was tripping, I had this idea that we were taught murder by these, celebrities on TV, because if it wasn't, I Love Lucy or Leave It to Beaver, it was all murder.
Yeah.
Which is true. So why don't we kill the people who taught us to murder? I was like, oh, because there's the hint, especially when Brad Pitt character is leaving Spawn Ranch. I was like, oh, okay, maybe they're gonna get killed as well. Because the whole time you're sitting here like, okay, Margot Robbie hasn't said much of a word at all. What's going on here? And then you realize they're going to kill Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt. Quentin Tarantino, you mad genius. And then you assume, okay, then they're going to go gut Sharon Tate and her friends. That is far from what happens. Because it's also a good callback, because the first part of the film, I mean, the majority takes place in early February, 1969. And the last 30 takes place in early August when the murders happen.
Yeah.
And in February, in the film, Brad Pitt buys a acid-soaked cigarette.
Yeah.
And, of course, actually, she also mentioned that between then, DiCaprio's character went to Italy, which, of course, I love because I love spaghetti westerns, and he started a bunch of them. So he gets his career kind of on a new track. He gets a Italian wife who doesn't speak a lick of English and brings her back. I know it's Hollywood in the 60s, but it's also Hollywood now.
Yeah.
And him and Pitt, they're basically going to be like, listen, we're probably not going to work together anymore, so let's let's get blind drunk one more night, because that's the only way a friendship can really truly end, which I agree with. And of course, he comes back, he walks his dog high on acid, and then DiCaprio's in his pool outside, his wife is sleeping, and the Manson family breaks in, and he is just high, doesn't realize that it's real, and just starts laughing at them. And a lot of nice touch, especially the Manson murders. Tex actually did say, "I'm the devil here to do his business."
Yeah.
So that was a nice little touch of reality there. And they're just like, they're gonna kill Brad Pitt and DiCaprio. What a savage move. And then Pitt realizes, oh, I've seen you at Spawn Ranch before. So he kind of realizes, and he orders his dog to go attack Tex, and the dog just like starts biting his hand in his junk. And then he starts beating on one of the Manson girls, and it was just like, and then you realize, oh, they're gonna survive this. And it's just, because that's the thing, when you go to a Quentin Tarantino movie, you expect hyper violence, and this film, Hateful Eight, the first act kind of built towards it, but the second act was just all violence. Here, you don't get violence until the last 10 minutes.
Oh, man.
And yet, it's maybe some of the best violence he's done in a long time.
It was excellent.
It was brutal. He slams like one of the girls' heads on the fireplace, on the phone, on the table. I was like, how is she still alive? And of course, there's just stabbing. The dog just biting Tex. And then the girl, one of the final girls, she's just mad, like just gets thrown through the back window where the pool is, and her just like, what the hell is this? And she jumps in the pool with a knife and is just like yelling. And I was in a theater that I've been into many times, and I think the audio was a little higher than usual, because her screams were just like piercing. It was wonderful. Like, because the Lion King was next to us. And the walls, because that theater's getting renovated. And if you're in a theater there where the film next to you is loud, you can hear it. So I can just imagine kids watching the Lion King, and there's just a dying girl's screams just piercing into that. Which, of course, with Tarantino vibes, I'm already laughing to begin with, but here I was just like, oh, this is wonderful. This is wonderful.
Oh, man. And then, Peter, I told you this pre-show, maybe my favorite scene. It was
perfect.
It was like, we hear the stories about the flamethrower. He learned to use it for like 2 weeks, 3 hours every day, and we find out he got to keep the flamethrower.
And he just burns this girl in the pool. It was superb violence.
I was like, that's a way. That's a way to end the violence right there.
It was. Because that's the thing. You know it's going to happen, but he wants you to be patient for this one film. And even though it's not, like Django or Inglourious Basterds, even Hateful Eight, where it's very, there's a lot of it. Here it's very condensed, but it's maybe the most brutal I've seen Quentin Tarantino in a long time.
Oh, man.
Like, there's just, it was grotesque, it was bloody, it was uncomfortable, it was perfect.
Peter, I'll say this. If it wasn't for Endgame, that would have been the best ending to a movie this year.
And then, of course, you realize they all survived. The twist was they killed the Manson family. And, of course, Pitt's character knows where they are. So, and, of course, he survives even though he gets stabbed non-lethally. And, as he's going to the hospital, Leonardo DiCaprio's just in the street, and Jay Sebring, Sharon Tate's hairstylist, and the guy who would have the Sebring International Raceway named after him in his honor. See, I know some stuff, kids. Comes out like, what the was going on? And which is just, to me, so funny, because he was one of the guys that was killed in real life. And DiCaprio's just like nonchalant, like, oh, these hippies broke into my house and we had to kill them. He's like, that's crazy. I was like, I can't believe he's doing this. I can't believe he's getting away with this. And then Sharon Tate, just pages through the intercom and is like, what's going on down there, Jay? And, she tells him about it. And he's invited up, which, fulfills the arc that he now knows the Polanskis and Sharon Tate. So his career will probably benefit from that.
Yeah.
And it's just a crazy ending where Sharon Tate invites him into the house to have drinks with her and her friends. And that's it.
That's it.
That's the film. Sharon Tate survives completely unscathed.
Talk about subverting expectations, Peter.
That was unbelievable. Because there was a part toward the end where I was like, could she survive this? Could that be the ultimate twist? And Lord, as it was, that was it.
Yep.
That was it.
Oh, man.
So yeah, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. If you're patient with it, unlike Matt Mormon, and you appreciate what it's doing, it might be one of your favorite films of the year.
It certainly was for me.
I will say you probably should see some Tarantino films before this, otherwise you're going to be unbelievably confused on why he directs like this. But it all makes sense.
Oh, man.
It's a very slow burn, but when it gets hot, it gets unbelievably hot.
Way to make a nice little pun there, Peter.
Yeah. Well, that's all we can say about it, Quentin. We're happy to have you back, and we look forward to whatever psychotic thing you have next for us. If it's Star Trek, that's going to be...
Oh, man. So, that'll do it for this edition of the Entertainment from the 573 Pod, everybody. Thank you guys for listening. You can check us out on all of our podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, whichever way you get your podcasts. As Peter mentioned, you can go check us out on our YouTube channel, Podcast from the 573. Also, check out our other channel, Views from the 573. We just did an episode this week. We're coming out with one coming soon. Excited for that. We're rolling along in our football previews. So everybody get ready for that and what's coming next with those podcasts. So with that being said, everybody, thank you guys for tuning in. And we will talk to you guys next time.